Whereabouts are you then with the snow in the background then?
I'm in Vermont.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lovely part of the world too.
If I could turn it around and I could show you, but yeah, I'm overlooking this valley with a little small pond in it and mountains coming down to it and just covered in snow.
Wow. Do you ski there?
My husband is out skiing right now, but I
Oh,
go
wow.
and tromp. I put gaiters on and go out and tromp in the woods, and I did just come back from that.
Oh, well, we go sailing here on the sea. We've just had lunch today on the beach. We went into to Punta La Cosa, which is a beautiful beach area, like a national park. It's actually owned by the prince, and you can go in and yeah, just a 10-minute drive away. And I go cycling
Nice.
in the mountains, so we don't have to
Oh,
ski.
wonderful.
But yeah,
Wonderful. Yeah, my husband is quite a cycler too. He's got an electric bike now. Now
wow.
that he's 66, he's it's easier on the joints, but boy does he manage to have a blast on it.
Well, in that terrain, you need something to give you a boost up hills.
Yeah, you really do. You really do.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. It's
noticing this painting behind you on the wall with the light.
yeah. That's
Can't
the
quite see the whole
there you go.
thing, but can I? Oh, and what is that?
That's the logos of Earth.
The logos of Earth.
Yeah, yeah,
Terrific.
yeah.
Terrific.
It's probably a big thing to jump into straight away. But since you asked, actually, I had Robert Svoboda on the show, and what a guy. I mean, I knew
Yeah.
from all his. I don't have to tell you, obviously, because you know. But I mean, you know from his books what a profound person he is. But when you get to speak to him,
Yeah. It's really something. He's really something.
so I was speaking to him, and because after I got into Ayurveda, I go full in. You know, I mean, I studied to be a practitioner as well, and I really got really into it, and then I moved into metaphysics, and with my one track mind, my brain. This is not. I'm not interviewing myself here, hopefully, but I'll make it
No, I'm very, very interested. Take your
okay.
time.
Because you also had you have a series of on the planets, knowing the qualities of the planets.
Mhm.
And, so anyway, we got chatting with Robert, and he said that because I got into the metaphysics and then into the advanced metaphysics and then into the Ethereal Society, which was founded by Dr. King, and it's cosmic. It's a cosmic religion. So
By
all
Dr. King? By Dr. Martin Luther King?
no, Dr. George King.
Different.
Yeah.
George King. Hmm.
Mhm. And so all the other planets are inhabited, but just to different frequencies of vibration. So, you know, it's like when you die here, you go to the astral realms, which is just right here between my hands, but it's just a different frequency of vibration. So you die there, you're reborn here. And so all the other planets are populated at higher vibrations. You know, that's where the UFOs come from, and not from far distant star system. It's all right here. So I said this to Robert, and he said, "Yeah, I know. It's it's all in the Vedas. You know, all the." So I didn't expect him to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting um, how attached we are to things either exist or they don't exist, depending on whether they exist in this world of five elements, in this physical plane.
Right.
And we're so attached to that. If you call yourself scientific, it's what can you see and feel and touch in this realm?
Mm.
But then that doesn't include the astral realm or the causal realm, which is above the astral realm, according to my teachers, or anything above those three worlds, above the worlds governed by call. So, then we get into eternity and what that looks like. But it's interesting how we don't believe these things exist unless we see them in this five element world.
Yeah, because all the Vedas in encoded language. So you know, people like yourself and Robert can decode them. But so going back to that picture, then, so Dr. King, he was um, the Mahabodhisattva for the Aquarian age, so he could project from the body astral projection, and he went down. He did many things out of the body. That's it's a whole long conversation we did, but he is a Mahabodhisattva, and so that's the logos of Earth. So he projected to the center of the Earth and met the keepers of the flame, and then he saw a very small part of the logos of the flame, and they I think they made it in this. I don't know if they made it through that frame, but that's what he saw. So he said it changed from a flame into lots of tiny triangles in a second, and then tiny shapes, and it's a because the Earth is a supreme being. It's an amalgamation of consciousness far beyond. So as we die, we go through these life cycles and we merge our consciousness, and eventually we merge into with other people, eventually merging. So the logos of Earth is millions of masters merged together to create a consciousness that's beyond our.
So I'm sure you're aware, but you're aware that logos is the word, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, the whole biblical word,
Yeah.
and is the same as logos. And the word for word or sound in Sanskrit is shabd. So that shabd or nod, or every religion has its own word for that. But it's really at the core of uh, of of all these religions.
Yeah. Yeah. They said that the sun spoke the word. The sun is the God in the Bible, and the Brahma of the Hindu scripts is the sun, and the sun spoke the word to create the earth. The earth comes out of the sun. Uh, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. So forget Ayurveda. No, but it's fascinating. So it's funny how you learn these things and they just lead you to a greater appreciation of 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 things like Ayurveda and the Vedics. It's just knowledge beyond our. Even though we can read it, it's right in front of us. It's beyond our comprehension. It's deep.
Yeah, a secret in plain view.
Yeah. So one question I wanted to ask Robert, and I forgot, is that I wanted to ask if doshas are divas. So because we're taught in Ayurveda that we have these three doshas in our bodies, and we have to balance them, and they run our lives and there's like. But then, as I was learning from my metaphysics, that wherever there is one of the elements, there's going to be a diva, a nature spirit. If there's wherever there's fire, water, air, ether, there's going to be. And so I was wondering if and there's all these sub doshas. I wonder the devic structure the devic kingdom has a structure as well. So I wanted to ask him if the doshas were divas. I didn't.
There's no indication of that in any of the Ayurveda, in Brihadrayi, anywhere in any of the fundamental classics. But what would be more likely to say, and certainly is embodied divinity in the Vedas, is Vayu instead of Vata. The thing between Vata and Vayu is Vata we associate more with pathology, whereas Vayu is more of the natural. Um, uh, it is a divinity. It's certainly a divinity in the Vedas. It's the natural flow, unencumbered, unimpeded flow of prana going in the right direction, wherever that happens to be in the body. There's not really five vatas, apana and vyana and so forth. There's one prana, but just depending on where it is in the body, it will have a different natural movement. And so we call them different things, but there's really one. And if you were going to, that acts differently in different parts of the body, depending on what's needed at that place. So I would say that, you know, more of a traditional view would not be that there's um, devas or devatas necessarily associated with, or nature spirits associated with the subdoshas or the doshas, but certainly with Vayu as the concept of air and movement and intelligence, that kind of thing, and Tejas instead of Pitta. We would look at Tejas and Agni we would really look at Agni as fire. Fire was, out of in the Rig Veda, there's 10,000 something uh, mantras. Of those, 2,000 are to Agni. So Agni is a serious deity in the Vedas. So certainly Agni, and then we could say Soma is uh i- is the equivalent of Kapha. On that subtle
Sure.
beatific level, it's going to be more Soma than Kapha, but we wouldn't think Soma uh the doshas as such in that context.
Because they are kind of like living. They are
Well, they're
kind of.
they're bodily manifestations of Vayu and Agni and Soma,
Mm.
but they're the more stula representation of the more sukshma, the more subtle. They're the more gross representation of the more subtle um, divinities.
When I got into Ayurveda, it really, because I looked into Chinese medicine way back first, and that has the yin and the yang, and when I.
And you know that Ayurveda has the yin and the yang absolutely 100% exactly correlative. And it's one of the only things that is exactly correlative in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine. So, but it's the Santarpana and Apatarpana, or the other Sanskrit words for that, right, is Brahmana and Langana. And Brahmana is exactly correlative with yin,
Really?
and Langana is exactly correlative with yang.
Because that's what heard you talking about. Because your book, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. You talk about Brahmana borrowing from Langana, or is it the other way around?
Langana is borrowing from Brahmana.
The stress hormones takes from the sex hormones,
That's right.
and then people get depleted. And,
Yeah, that's one way. Yeah.
and that really resonated, because everyone says, it's funny how everyone says stress is, but they don't get the mechanics of it. They always trying to treat the measure of everything though. And that's what I love about Ayurveda. It goes, you don't treat the symptoms, you treat the cause.
You certainly have the opportunity to practice by just teaching, treating the symptoms, but you have the potential to go deeper and deeper. For you, you went to Ayurveda and then you went to metaphysics. And, in Ayurveda, we can ask, what is the problem? Is it adhibautika? Is it physical, or is it adhyatmika? Is it emotional, mental situation, or is it adhidaivika? Is it a spiritual disorder? And then you can treat it on one, the other, or the other. So, many mm, different people resonate with different treatment strategies and different approaches. So, one a physically oriented person is going to look at the adhibautika issue, the physical problem, and address it with yukti vipassana. The with uh, that physical toolbox. They'll apply the physical toolbox of herbs and remedies and panchakarma and so forth, that kind of thing. But if somebody's more focused on the adhyatmika side of things, the mental, emotional side, they're going to gravitate more towards sattvavajaya treatments, the mental treatments of looking at the cause of the affliction of mind, looking at the cause um, of the affliction of the body, but through the mind. And so they'll work with control of senses, proper use of the senses. So there's not ati yoga, hina yoga, or mithya yoga of the senses, too much, too little, or improper use of the senses. So that they'll look at those things. And then if someone wants to look at the adhidaivika issues, the more spiritual issues, as you may well know, in India, when we talk about spiritual issues, it's not going to be the same as the way we would in the West think of a spiritual issue. In India, we would think more of curses and um, uh, afflictions from the planets um, and from the gods and so forth. And so then we would work uh, with Daiva Vyapasharaya, which is really directed towards that very sukshma aspect of the organism. And so those are going to be things like mantra and yantra and tantra and n- gemstones and things. And my personal favorite, falling at the feet of the gods, because when all else fails, that's good. That's a good plan.
Oh, something else that got me about Robert, because we were talking about in Ashtanga Hridium, because I was reading that as well, and there's a whole section about mental illness and possession,
Right.
and so I was saying to him, because I got into metaphysics, and they say that thing happens, you can get other people in your body, and so I said to him, like, does that true? Either Vagbita was wrong, which is not really probably not true, or
Yeah.
it's out of date and that doesn't happen anymore, which doesn't really seem true either.
Well, look, there's a couple things about this too, though. I mean, yes, there's long time. It's not just Vagbhat, but meant this has been widely understood as part of reality in India for millennia. Into the idea of possession of spirits, and there's certain things that make you more prone to that, whether it's alcohol or being in wet, damp, dark places, or having a insecure ahankar in yourself, and so you're more vulnerable for a strong ahankar to take over, um, and and you act as a host. So there's that, certainly that level of understanding even today in India. But if we look at, for example, I think that that is, at the cause. If we're looking at the cause of things, so for example, if we're looking like, okay, your hormones are out of whack because your cortisol is high. So basically, we could say that's high vata. So high vata is the cause. No, high vata is the symptom. What is the cause of the high vata? Oh, well, I'm overworking. Oh, okay. So that's the cause. So you can just not overwork. No, but what's the cause of you overworking? Oh, well, because I have to get up early in the morning and bring my kid to school and make sure they have packed lunches, and my husband, and then I have to go to work, and then I have to make sure that my kids are fed organic food, and then I have to do yoga, and I have to meditate, and I have to um pick up the kids after school, and I have to look at the calendar, and I have to go shopping, and I have to bring the kids to soccer and bring them home, and so what is the cause of my doing that?
Mm.
And it goes to this to m it always ends up going back to a belief system of what I should be doing, or what I believe will make me successful.
Mm.
What that really is the possession of an idea, right? I'm
Okay.
possessed by the idea of what success is. But when I go right down to it, if I'm that mom and I look, am I happy? By and large, the answer is no. I feel trapped in a life I don't want to be living by my own doing, by my own belief system. And so if I'm tr tr so that's the cause, is the belief system. So the fix is easy, change the belief system, but it's not easy, it's simple. The fix is simple, but it's very difficult because there's an enormous amount of fear of, severing that belief system, replacing that belief system, and renewing a belief system based on what that innermost voice of my innermost essence is. And if I can hear that innermost essence, that can guide my steps if I have the courage to do it. So, the question is should I do this thing, bring my kids to soccer, or should I not do this thing, right? Should I do this series of actions throughout the day that I am not committed to in my heart of hearts? You know, and if the answer is yes, like, okay, I'm not liking this, but yes, this is what I am committed to in the heart of hearts, then it's not a stressful situation. It's a situation that demands courage. And the physiology of courage and the physiology of stress are two totally different animals. One causes disease and one is invigorating. So but if the answer is no, this is not I in my innermost essence do not believe I am serving myself or my kids by overextending myself in this way, then do I have the courage to stop? And the courage to stop takes an enormous amount of courage, I've found, for people, other people and myself in my life. Takes less courage, I think, as we go along because, why does that take so much courage? I think it's because we're afraid that if we stop, everything is going to fall apart. The kids' lives are going to fall apart. My partner and I are going to fall apart. My life, my finances, everything is going to fall apart. But what I've found is if we have the courage, maybe not to jump over the cliff and do everything all at once and change the belief system all at once, but to do something in that direction. If we don't have the courage to do everything, have the courage to take one step. And then we see, oh, it's the life isn't coming apart, it's not falling apart, it's getting better. And we have the courage to take the next step and slowly become more and more aligned with that the voice of the innermost essence, which from a certain perspective we could simply call dharma. Then we're in our dharma. It's not something we've chosen. Oh, my dharma is to be a healer. It's more something that we've cooperated with the inner voice. It's like, oh, I don't know what my dharma is going to be tomorrow. My dharma is, it's always what is my innermost essence saying.
Oh, that's a
And so
beautiful answer.
that changes the possession of what we believe success is. So I think there's various elements that we can relate to in the modern age about possession and what possession is. But I think that one is almost universal.
That's beautiful. Yes, because we're possessing ourselves. You're saying we're the you can do the exact same. You could take the kids to soccer. You could do this and do that in one way in a stressful situation, or in another way, it could be a beautiful. Imagine this was the last day you're never going to have, and you float through the day. You have spend quality time with the kids. You pick them up, you take them around. It's a joy. Just doing the same thing, but the intention. Yeah. Love it. So just a conscious mind. And going back to just unpacking also what you said, that stress and fear essentially is going to shorten your life and make it pretty miserable. But courage, the opposite, is going to transform it.
Well, let's look at that for a minute. So it may not extend your life. My Guruji used to say that our breaths are counted, and the moment where we die and the cause and even who around it is around us at that time is predestined.
That's
So
great knowledge. Yeah. I know that too. Yeah, from metaphysics.
so there's different views on that, but that's what my Guruji used to say. But until you get there, do you want to live in stress or do you want
Well,
to
if
live
you're,
in
you're born,
courage?
you're born with so many breaths, you're predetermined. So if you lengthen those breaths, you lengthen your life. That's what
Right.
yogis.
That's right. So, but it's still, it's not a given that having a non-stressful life is going to prolong your life necessarily, but it
If you pant
may
like a
make it
dog,
better along the
it's
way,
gonna go.
you know. But let's look at that physiology of stress versus physiology of courage for a minute, because okay, um, there's this understanding, and certainly I've written about it a lot in Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, and in the online women's health courses. I've talked a lot about stress, and so many people have talked a lot about stress. But then there's interesting studies about how stress hurts you if you believe that stress hurts you. If you
Mm.
don't believe that stress hurts you, then it doesn't. There's interesting studies about that. So then, you could say, well, oh my God, I've been teaching people that stress is bad for them. And so then that's going to hurt them because then they're going to believe that and that's going to hurt
You're
them.
killing people.
Right. Um, so, but let's put a little pin in that for a second. So one of the things the physiology of stress does is it increases the blood flow throughout the body and blood volume kind of thing. And puts pressure on the heart in that way because the vessels around the heart constrict. So there's this extra momentum meeting constriction and resistance. And that dynamic causes all kinds of trouble, heart attack,
Hypertension.
hypertension. You also cannot digest food if you're stressed, not even kitchery if you're really stressed, because your vital resources are being shunted to your extremities. So they're robbing the the digestive organs and reproductive organs of vital um, resources, prana and blood and so forth. So that's a nasty physiology, is excess momentum meeting restriction. Whereas if we're meeting something with courage, it has the same momentum build, but physiologically, the vessels in the heart open up and expand. They rise to the challenge. So it's not damaging. So it doesn't have the same damaging effect. So there's really the mental talk about, whether you want to look at something on a physical level or a mental level. We only separate that because we can't get our head around the fact that they're completely combined. You can't affect one without affecting the other. So how we're going into an action, a responsibility, a day, a thought, an experience, if we're going into it with courage, whole different ballgame than with stress. But so that's really more amazing. And so you could say, okay, well, then just tell yourself to go into the day with courage. But so great if that works. But if truly in my heart of hearts, going out and having this overextended sort of day and life and month and week and minute where I'm always driving, it's never enough. I'm always driving for more, striving for more. If that's it, I'm going to have a really hard time summoning meaningful courage because I don't feel it in my heart of hearts. And so that's a show of courage. And that causes even more stress because it's a pretense, right? So, so yes, if we face our life courageously, it's going to change the experience. But I don't believe we can summon that courage unless it's meaningful to us. And if it's not in line with our innermost essence, how is it meaning deeply to us? Then it's going to be this reality meeting pretense is setting up uh, a field that's ripe for weeds. You know, it's setting up tension, it's setting up stress, and so we can't fool ourselves into courage from stress. We have to align with that innermost essence to access and tap into that courage, and then it's freely given, as it seems to me.
The first freedom in the Nine Freedoms, the book that from Dr. King, is bravery, and
Mm,
that's when you look at worry, for example. It can be rationalized fear. People say, "Oh, I don't have any fear in my life. I'm just going through this." But they have these kind of these worries, which is, if you really go to the heart of it, is fear. You're afraid of something,
yeah,
loss, what's the first line in Ashtanga reading? It's about desire. Now, is it ragadi?
yeah. Ragadi rogan satatan shaktan sheshkaya
So that,
sichavan.
and what does that mean? Is that about desire? Is the
Yeah. So passion passion is at the root of all maladies, right? And and obeisance be to that apurva vidya, that that big vidya in the sky, that big doctor in the sky.
mm,
Obeisance to him who's able to release us of that desire, and that desire is again that never enoughness, that always striving, always striving.
is it because Bhagavad was a Buddhist and he wrote that line for the Buddha because he just literally sat down and said, "I'm going to slay all my desires, got rid of all the cravings and the aversions, and subsequently had good health, among other things." Yeah. You
Yeah,
talk
and I mean, that takes courage, right? To slay those desires because they're so if we've been possessed by them long enough, then they've really coalesced around our ahankar, our sense of who we are.
yeah.
So it's not just about getting rid of the desire, it's severing part of ourself. And, that's where Kali comes in and these forces of destruction in India, it's destroying those in a sense, those attachments um, to these possessions.
Yeah, and we're battling our conscious mind and also the conscious minds of our friends and family who are all sleepwalking around the house. And I heard in another, you talk in your book about greed and you talk about how that is the fundamental, one of the fundamental things. And but also in the teachings from the society, they talk about there is only one crime in the solar system, and that's ignorance. And that derives all other sins because what the Buddha did, he slayed enlightenment slays ignorance. So if you're in anything you're doing, you could say is because you're ignorant of something.
Yeah. Yeah, ignorant of our own selves, perhaps, that own inner essence,
Yeah.
that logos.
Our logos. Yeah. 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 Because, all these bad habits we have, and we all know if we really sit down and quietly chat to ourselves, we know what we're doing wrong now. And we know that all the diseases of the day are lifestyle diseases. And if we just, we, c- did it say 80% of, in Ashtanga Rhythm, 80% of diseases can be cured without a doctor
I don't remember that from Ashtanga Hridayam,
or something like that, yeah,
I think probably all diseases could be cured without a doctor if the lifestyle is right
yeah.
and the thinking.
You write a lot about women's health, and you've really focused on that throughout your career. Many of my friends female friends have met thyroid problems. Seems to be an epidemic at the moment, especially in Western Europe. I don't know about America, but is there a common cause for that, or are we going back to the?
There certainly is, and I get into it in the, online Women's Health and Hormones course, part 1, the online course. But any endocrine system issue is you had brought up earlier that whole, robbing the Lungana forces, robbing the Brahmana forces. So that there's that it's a,
Is it yin and the yang?
it's yeah, the yin and the yang. So the in order to keep supplementing a yang way of life, the body uh, takes some of the yin, transforms it into yang, so that we can keep doing that. And so it's robbing the yin. It's robbing this grounded, calming, cooling, nourishing energy, transforming it into motion and protection and activation and all this kind of stuff. And when that goes on long enough, it starts to wear on the endocrine system, all else being equal, first hitting the adrenals. And there's reasons for all these things, and symptoms that go along with all of them. But first, all else being equal, and I can go back and clean up that in a second and say what I mean by that. But so all else being equal, when that robbery goes on long enough, it hits the adrenals, then the insulin producing portion of the pancreas, and then the thyroid, and then other things, the ovaries, other system, sort of deeper systems um, in the endocrine system. So usually what I've seen in my practice is when the thyroid is taxed to a certain degree, it becomes hyper, and then it can actually bottom out and become hypo, but the same instigating factors are the cause of both of them. Certainly there can be genetic situations where that's not what I'm talking about. But that's where the root of from what I've seen, it happens.
And then many people have a friend of my girlfriend. She just had an operation to remove it, the
Mm.
thyroid, and they found it cancerous tumor next to it. I mean, if you get the thyroid removed, that's a bad idea, no?
Well, sometimes you absolutely have to get it removed, and then you absolutely have to be for life on thyroid replacement medication. So it's better, if possible, to address these things earlier down in the road. But it's not to say that those people can't have good health, but certainly means that they need in my experience, it's very helpful for them to educate themselves on why this happened so that they can turn it around so that the other levels of the endocrine system are not going to subsequently be affected.
Mm. Yeah, people have different theories, non-Ayurvedic, that it was just too much flame retardant chemicals put on all, like, the new car smell.
Mhm.
And, it's on your furniture and on your carpets and on your new cars.
Yeah. Well, that plays into hormones because all those things are endocrine disruptors. So,
Uh,
when you have endocrine disruptive chemicals in the environment, that's going to have an effect on the endocrine system. So that's going to be a hit and make it more vulnerable as well.
so what can people do then if they're hearing this and they've been diagnosed with a thyroid problem? Is there
I would
Ayurveda
say,
can help?
please, please, please watch the Women's Health and Hormones Part 1 online course
Okay.
because there's it just it's sets up how we get into these things. Not only endocrine disorders, but, um, hot flashes and night sweats and PMS and what we do about what we're possessed by, what we've talked about before, and it's a complement to the book in terms of, it's a complement to Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life in terms of really going into visually what's happening with stress, why is it there, how is it affecting the hormones, how is that affecting the breast tissue, how is that affecting the, experience of, menstruation and menopause and postmenopause and all of those things. And so, and how does it lead to thyroid issues? And when we really understand that, be able to answer yourself what you need to do about that. And there's the education for that is way more important than any herb I could suggest. And any herb that could be suggested is probably better to be suggested by a personal healthcare practitioner who knows your history and can do that for you. But they don't have the time to sit down and tell you if they even know, if they've
Yeah.
even know this whole thing. They don't have the time to sit down and say, how did we get here? And so that course is one that I wish every woman in the world could know the information in there, because if we understand that, we understand how powerful it is to make even small changes in our lives that are free. They may not be easy, but they're simple.
Yeah. Ignorance is the only crime. So but that's something I learned from, I did the practitioner course, but it just was so beneficial to me. It should be in primary school just to know that wisdom Ayurveda is, even if you don't, are not a doctor, it's fantastic you're doing courses like this to educate women. And because, if it's a thyroid problem today, okay, that's an operation maybe, but it's younger women having this as well. There's the menopause coming up, and even if you pass that, there's still other problems. There's other things that can break down, while we're still here. So it's never too late, is it?
No, no, it really isn't. I mean, it would be so great to see 20-year-olds learning this information, but they tend to think they're invincible. And it's not until 35 that women really start pouring into alternative healthcare practitioners' offices and looking for solutions, because and there's reason for that, why things start to reveal problems start to reveal themselves after 35. And so,
What is the reason for that?
well, that's when progesterone starts decreasing. So progesterone is a yin, it's a brahmana uh, substance in the body. It has a brahmana effect. And so we've got a similar amount when we're born, let's say, of stress hormones and sex hormones. And from 35 on, progesterone starts to decrease. That's the yin, right? That starts to decrease. And then at menopause, estrogen and progesterone both go down quite a bit. But when that yin, when that lungana, I'm sorry, that brahmana force influence starts to decrease, if the stress and the drive, the yang, the lungana forces in our life, if those stay the same, then we start to get this imbalance where they end up being greater than the yin forces. And it's that discrepancy wherein we find all kinds of trouble. That's where we start seeing things breaking down a lot, like digestion, and start getting maybe even perimenopausal symptoms early, and more cramps, and more and night sweats and hot flashes and migraines, and headaches in general, and just pretty much whatever system in the body has been stressed starts to show it after 35, because that discrepancy it starts getting more and more clear from 35 on.
My girlfriend's pregnant at the moment, and she's 36, so she's be giving birth, and worried about the post depression that can happen. When you is there a ways to help this in Ayurveda?
Yeah, so usually what I've seen with postpartum depression is if there's a history of depression and being overworked and overstressed before the pregnancy, sometimes the pregnancy um, will heal those for temporarily for a while, because we have this excess brahmana building the baby, building the tissues, building the milk, building the placenta. There's all this building going on, but it's for this other being. And when this other being comes out and the placenta is released and the baby is taking the milk, then if the woman was depleted before pregnancy, or depressed before pregnancy, or stressed before pregnancy, this is a critical time, postpartum, because all of that, in a sense, it's not false brahmana, but it was brahmana for somebody else, the baby. And we benefited from it by carrying the baby, having all that brahmana. But now that brahmana is gone, it's all going to the baby. And so much of our own resources are going to the baby. And so that period of time, if there was stress, if there was excess lungana beforehand, it starts to be um, more critically uh, mm, experienced in the postpartum stage. And so all the things you would imagine, great nurturing, girlfriends around, connecting, feeling safe. When people think about oxytocin in terms of its antidotal effects to stress and so forth. And sometimes it's called the sex hormone or the cuddle hormone, because
Mm,
it often increases during sex, but it has nothing to do with sex. People who are raped don't get an increase in oxytocin, right? It's about connection. You can get that with your pet and with your cat, with a child, presumably one who's well behaved and that you like, right?
mm,
With your partner, when you feel a sense of security. And it's not this goopy, oh, wonderful. It's just a sense of belonging. It's a sense of stable connection. And so, girlfriends around, that's a medicine, because it increases oxytocin. A sympathetic, understanding, harmonious partner, that will increase that will increase
where do I get
oxytocin.
one of
That's
those from?
medicine. Mhm.
Where do I
Where do you
get one
get
of those?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
oxytocin is also something I've heard a lot about in the biohacking field, and even the men who want to improve, you get a lot of performance enhancement benefits. It's cuddling a rabbit or stroking a little pussycat. It sort of has a myriad of benefits. So I'm hoping also to get a big boost of oxytocin once I've got the baby as well.
Yeah, you probably will. And it's interesting, like, they did a study with oxytocin once where they, put these, they tested the levels of oxytocin of, uh, participants at a wedding including the bride and people around the bride.
Mm.
And what they found was the bride had the highest levels of oxytocin of anybody, but anybody focusing on the bride, not touching her, not having sex with her, not giving her a hug, anybody just simply focusing on her had an increase in oxytocin. So whether we're talking about mirror neurons or a transference of prana but I think mirror neurons are a really good way to understand these sorts of phenomena. But just just focusing on them increases the oxytocin. So it's, just being a presence around someone. If your own oxytocin, if you're feeling, and what do you have to do to that? You have to feel connected. If we wake up in the morning and we fall in love with something, with the divine, and if that's too lofty and you can't get there and you're stuck at meditating, that's fine. Do you like a good jam? Can you put a good jam on your toast? You then you I think love and gratitude both, is my guess, both increase oxytocin. If you can't get to love and world peace and the big things, really feeling grateful for this perfect jam on the toast in the morning will also it kind of fools the body a little bit. Like, if I can really be grateful for this, it's going to have the same effect as being really grateful for the big things.
Wow. Yeah, we haven't had our wedding day yet, but so I can't imagine what it's like to be dressed in white. I mean, sorry, I'll be in the other one. But I, when I was traveling around as a musician, I played house concerts. It's because I didn't because playing in a normal venue is it's a bit shitty. You're up on stage, you're far away from people. There's not this connection. So I switched to just doing house concerts, and even with 20 people, you're in a semicircle and you're telling the story of your songs, and you're playing for them an hour, and everyone's just beaming. And so I did that every night for a long time, and I must have been oxytocin because it just felt so amazing to just
Yeah,
on such a high of
yeah.
that experience.
You're right. Right, and that may have been a combination of oxytocin and dopamine, you know?
To the
A little of both,
mix.
because when we
Double
complete a
shot.
task, there's such a satisfaction with that,
Right.
you know?
Ah,
And it's a boost, it's invigorating, that that dopamine.
yeah. Yeah, uh, what going back to the pregnancy, because she's a Vata, so I like what you're saying about like increases like people likes like. So people who are stimulating up, they want a coffee because, when you're stimulating up, you don't take a downer, do you? You want to go up and up and up. And if you're down, you're on the couch, you don't want to start taking amphetamines, you're on the couch, you're really just you watch Netflix and you order pizza and you go down and down and down and down. So what you're saying is if before pregnancy, if you're like that, you go afterwards, you're going to be more because you've had this huge,
Because you'll be further depleted.
you'll be further depleted. So what
Yeah.
about, because she's also very worried about the breastfeeding. So how could she increase her milk?
So she needs to have sufficient rasa dhatu, right?
Mm.
And, rasa is pretty much the opposite of langana, right? It's nourishing, it's cooling, it is brahmana. And so, a brahmana lifestyle, enough rest, um, it's important during pregnancy and the early days of baby's life, I believe too, but certainly in Brihatrayi, they talk about during pregnancy, it is so important to satisfy a woman's cravings. And they go so far as to say, if you can satisfy those cravings in a wholesome way, great, do that. But if you can't, even satisfying it in an unwholesome way is important to do. So, which I think
Just one
it's
thing on that, well, before I forget, because I'm in Italy. And so during the pregnancy, there's this thing they have this thing called voyo. And if a pregnant woman, because they're very vain in Italy, if they're worried about, because if a pregnant woman, I learned it from metaphysics, where if she sees something and really wants it and doesn't get it, the baby can have a scar, a mark on its face or a birthmark anywhere in its body in the shape.
yeah, they share that in India, that belief as well.
Really? So
Yeah,
if she's great walking around with it because if she sees anything, people are rushing to satisfy her desires. She's nice.
perfect. It's the thing to do. And, a lot of us will say, "Oh, you shouldn't eat that because that will be bad for the baby and it has endocrine disruptive things. And, suppose she wants Cheetos. I don't know if you have Cheetos there, like these horrible little cheese snacks,
I
puffed
never knew it
cheese
was a
snacks.
thing. I didn't know.
So they're these horrible little puffed cheese snacks. So suppose she wants that, it's not very good for you. It's filled with, chemicals and this and that. See if there's some way else that's wholesome
Okay.
you know, to satisfy that craving, whether it's like good quality fresh cheese on fresh bread, something like that. But if she's like, nope, none of that will work. I need the Cheetos, give her the Cheetos.
So I've got to go out into the storm, up the mountain,
That's
cross
right.
the desert, get those.
Cross the desert on your hands and knees for Cheetos because it's a craving. Here's the thing. By doing okay, so the idea from the classics is the being that's coming in has such a strong desire that kind of pulled it here. And if
Ah,
that desire can be assuaged now, it won't spend the rest of its life trying to satisfy that unsatisfied hunger
ah,
of for something. Um, and because babies are so influenceable, so malleable on a physical level, mental level, developmental level, suppose this is a craving that they never could satisfy their whole last life. But if you satisfy it at the
Cheetos.
embryological stage, then something that something that you may not be able to satisfy the rest of the life can get
Oh my God.
satisfied.
Wow.
So it's powerful, powerful time. And I believe that that is probably similar in because of the extreme vulnerability and impressionability of babies. I think that that probably lasts through the nursing. If the mother is going to receive, maybe not quite as strongly, but pretty strongly from the baby, as long as she's nursing and feeling connected, she's gonna she's she's probably gonna express the baby's craving as well.
It's that soul within you is, so how can she produce more milk then? Is it
So,
eating?
okay, so that's, that is all the vata pacifying things that
Mm,
the brahmana, so the oxytocin, the all of those brahmana forces. Um, so, but first, useful to, the digestion is a little bit weak at first. So, um,
okay.
simple, easy to digest foods, if possible, for a little while and follow her Agni, and her capacity to digest more complicated foods as she goes along. And so then you can start giving this the more dense Brahmana foods. But
Well, Araglia's
beginning,
fine now. She's eaten like a horse,
but it might get a little bit disturbed after giving
disturbed
birth.
after this. Yeah, of
It,
course.
might not, depends on the person, but, generally, if it's just, a constitution that doesn't have a lot of disorder, and the Agni is good, then Brahmana foods and so forth, um,
Okay.
and a
So
Brahmana
so
lifestyle.
so for the rest of us, control of the senses and desire is the way to happiness, yeah? Ex except pregnant women.
Right, exactly, and then forget about control of the senses in a way,
Oh,
and keep
crazy!
keep trying. I think it's really worth if I was pregnant, I would want to keep trying because that attempt at controlling the senses is also going to speak to the developing baby,
Ah,
right?
okay.
But if I'm noticing, oh, I'm really having this craving that doesn't seem to be coming from my desire. It seems to be coming from an unstoppable thing that isn't me. It's almost like I'm recognizing I am, as a pregnant woman, being possessed by another soul.
Oh, we're back to that again. Yeah, here we go.
Right. So this other
Actually,
soul,
visibly possessed.
right. So you're possessing it in a way, but you're being possessed by it because it's the baby's desire that's coming through. So if we have subtle enough pratyahara practice, a subtle enough ability to look inside ourselves and feel inside ourselves what's going on, we can even discern a little bit, oh, that doesn't feel like my desire. So it's not really that we're chasing our desire. That we continue to work with um and address in our own selves, but being in tune with the baby, being in tune with our own bodies, sorting out a little bit which is which, and appeasing that desire we're possessed by from the baby.
Because with many pregnant women, they get these huge cravings like, I've got to eat this and this and this. So that's
Right.
where it comes from.
That's what they say.
Okay. So I love the way we've come full circle back to the beginning there with possession.
Yeah, me too. And I think we're close to our time, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the time to chat.
It's my joy, Jack. Really, my joy.
Yeah. It's like I said, I don't, teach Ayurveda, but I feel it's given me such an education, and I still try and use it these days. And because health these days is really hard. It's we're under so many different influences, and everything's bad for us. And I know I've driven my girlfriend crazy by with too much Ayurveda, but she's still with me, having a kid with me. So it must it must be worth it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again
Do you
so
mind
much.
if we spent just 30 seconds or so just quiet before we sign off?
I would really like that.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
regarding your wife and lactation, just a couple things to remember. Of course, sneha means love, and sneha is oil. It's brahmana, and so surrounding her with love is the most important brahmana thing, perhaps. But there's also, of course, non-alcoholic beer. The hops has a um,
Yeah.
is good for milk production, and fennel tea, drinking like it's going out of style, really good for the milk. So,
Wow.
couple.
That's great. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Thank
All
you,
right.
Jack.
Bye bye,
Bye.
Chloe. I've been trying to live an Ayurvedic life with the wisdom of the ancient minds. But I wonder if they'd have been so wise if they had to live in these times. Can't sit cross-legged in the restaurant, can't lie down on the aeroplane, can't do what your urges want, it all adds up to pain. I've been having an oil massage every day, oil in my hair and enemas, footprints on the stairs. My girlfriend's in despair, and the only food I cook is kitchery. And now she's thinking about leaving me. Too many turmeric stains. She thinks that I'm insane. I've got the Ayurveda blues. The Ayurveda blues. Chlorine in the water, plastic everywhere. EMF from everything, but no one seems to care. Particles in the air, pesticides in food, modified and fertilized to a malevolent magnitude. But I'm on my guard. But health these days is so hard. And you know I'd like to sleep from 8 to 4, but then my friends all feel ignored. Gotta keep the balance right, but I belong in bed at night. To meditate in the Brahma is to take a step closer to God. And every day that I fail to pray, I take another step further away.
The secret is the seasons, but nobody wants the reasons. As the last sane man alive, it's a very lonely drive. And I know I gotta be a guiding light. I'm living the life I know is right. I can't change the world, just me, so I'll be the change I wanna see. I've got the Ayurveda blues. The Ayurveda blues. Chlorine in the water, plastic everywhere, EMF from everything, but no one seems to care. Particles in the air, pesticides in food, modified and fertilized soil, left back in the tube, but I'm on my God. Hell these days is so hard. Hell these days is so hard. The sages forestalled all these problems before and predicted the rise of the cities. While they study us, we know so little of them. Only how poorly we compare to these men. But their sutras survive and they make perfect sense. All we need is obedience. Handed down from enlightened minds. Improved right a million times. Don't need no AI, ain't gonna rely on no computers. I think in sutras. Don't need no AI, chakras my guide. You need computers. I think in sutras.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the song and the episode. The song will be released next week. Will be available on all streaming platforms, but you can already pre-save. Please support the artists by following them on social media and adding the song to any playlists you have. This is a completely free show, and you've listened this far, so I'd really appreciate it if you could pay us back by clicking like and subscribe. And follow at Podsongs on social media platforms, or subscribe to the newsletter at podsongs.com for special updates. Or just tell the next person you see about this amazing show where musicians interview their idols and write a song about them. The songs are available for download from the Podsongs website as well, which pays a lot more than the 0.00 whatever we get from Spotify. You can also email me at jack@podsongs.com to give feedback, suggest an artist and guest combos you'd like to hear, or just say hello. We're a listener-supported show, and I'd love to hear from you. A final thanks to my researchers, Dori Verbo and Rosa Marino, my producer, Maurizio Sanicola of Goldmine Records, and musicians Massimino Vozza and Luigi Falcione. The next episode will be out soon. In the meantime, you can listen to more amazing episodes in the archives. Until then, have a great day.